question and answer video on this channel, and this is the 999 show. It will be the 999 show next week, but as now it's still 999 ASMR Tarot. But as I've mentioned multiple times, I'm changing the name of this channel back to what it was when I first started, minus the definite article. So the very first iteration of this channel, which the first video went up on 9/9/2022 at 9 p.m. 999, and the channel name was THE 999 SHOW, and so we're just going back to that. And so I'm just going to start out by reading some poetry from my book, Found on Bathroom Walls, which is available through Amazon, and I believe I do have some links on this page on my channel to this, if you're interested. The poetry is kind of it's a little bit risque in the end of the book. Anyways, it is mostly found poetry, so found in your environment and then restructured and reformed. So found poetry, like cross out, collage, taking a line from here and there and restringing it together to form something new. And that's what the nature of this book is, with the exception of a few of the poems in the front. It also has some form poems in it as well. And so I will start with this, which is a collage poem. The collage poem is Love Poem Attempt 4. Hello, Ange. Welcome. Love Poem Attempt 4. Special moments brought showers, flowers, itchy skin. Spring cleaning the steam room, $2 tips on living in your crap, and faith. Pandora's Valentine 1. Welcome, Bill. Welcome. Anonymous entry. Patiently, attentively listen. 25% off blowing class. You just couldn't miss a chance like this. Free first visit. Sleepovers with theology and psychology. Find out where. Welcome, Tarot. Ask backwards. We won't sell you half a shoe. Condoms reduce the risk. 3. I saw you thinking big trouble, remembering a dance, a gypsy. At some point in our lives, we might as well be naked. And blessings, Fatima, and welcome to my show. So far, the Q&A hasn't begun, but I'll read the back of this book, found on page 46 of some random magazine and newspaper in Seattle, where the genesis of me being a mediocre artist began. Mediocre in the sense that most of the things you produce are on the mediocre level or almost good. So learning how to lay a line down on the page, it took years and years and years to do that. I started writing poetry in 1987, maybe a little bit before. My mom says I wrote poetry when I was in the 2nd grade. Anyways, but I see it as 1987 with collage poetry. That's where I started writing. The name of this book is Found on Bathroom Walls. And so this is called Found on page 46. I'm flush, dizzy, gasping for air. A woman startles my heart. My internal voice of reason fractures. In prayer, a voice whispers, I want to touch her naked on the floor. I exit, compose my wits. She calls. The burning pit in my stomach. The first time I experienced it on a Sunday afternoon, I remember leaning into and then away. I connected to a stranger lying naked on the floor. Okay, Found on Bathroom Walls, and that was found on page 46 of some random magazine. So let's get started here. This here is one of my early pieces of art. I think I sent to Jeff a picture of one of those early pieces of art. This is from 2017. So this is where I was at in 2017, and this is where I'm at right now. So let's go take another look at something from 2017. This is also from 2017. That my light is shining on it. It's kind of shiny, and it's not that one. So it's obviously this one over here. So, anyways, so I like hands. I tend to am attracted to hands, and I'm attracted to voices. So you can't. I'm sorry that the light's reflecting on it. Let's see if I can move that around. There we go. That is like a hand, and if you want to notice that the background of this, these are playing cards that I painted on top of. And I did that a lot in 2017. I think I did 3 pieces like that. This one was one of them as well, playing cards. Let me see if that other one is in here too. This one, also 2017. So this is really like the first year, 2017. And the best one from 2017 was this one, also on playing cards. And you can see them in the, this is like one of my favorite pieces from, and this is when I kind of realized that I had got it as an artist. Even though this is all really rough and primitive, but this texture, this quality of this presentation, this is when I really realized that I as a painter, I really had it. I realized in my heart of hearts, that it was, that I had that. And so you have that image, and we have the things coming through, the hidden reality behind the reality. And so this is kind of, maybe it's a spiritual piece. If you look at the spirituality, you have what's on the surface, and then you have what's down below. You have what's underneath it all. And so those are those pieces. And so we're going to go right into my questions. In my first question, there was a question that came from Ange, and I did write them down, and I started to write things down on them. And the question was, what led me to tarot? And, you know, as a Christian, and there's always that voice in the back of my head that has that there's a prohibition against tarot, a prohibition against tarot that are there. But my path started with this book here, The Voice of the Silence. And I haven't actually read, I've read pieces of it, but it's by H.P. Blavatsky. And I was at this bookstore, a used bookstore, and this thing was on the top shelf. And I reached up, and I swear that this book leapt into my hand. So maybe some might say that, oh, well, that's just to show that the demons have possessed you, and the demons move this into you. And well, okay, so now I learned last summer that H.P. Blavatsky was a member of the Golden Dawn. And so a contemporary of Waite, and a contemporary of Crowley, and a contemporary of Pamela Smith. And so that was actually kind of interesting that this, something that I ran across in the late 90s, maybe it was the early 2000s, I'm not quite sure, because I moved to Seattle in 2003, and I had this book before then. And so that, I think, is like the point of entry. H.P. Blavatsky. Then, of course, I went on in my life, and then I think I played around with some like runes and things like that. And I think that I also noticed angel numbers, but I didn't really know what they were. I just saw repeat numbers all over the place. And then things go dormant for a while, and then I sort of entered into Catholicism. I became Catholic in 1997 after having a religious experience in Jerusalem in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And that's kind of, but my journey into that started way earlier because I grew up in the Lutheran Church, and I've always had a more experiential sort of a spirituality, a more experiential connection to things. And so I've always been a little bit more, welcome Mama Sushi and welcome Fatima, I've been more mystically inclined. But for a while, I tried to do what Joseph Campbell said, and to sort of enter into the experience, and to enter into the experience of being a Christian. And yeah, and so that happened. And so I really tried to enter into that, into being a Christian. But ultimately, that was a failure for me. That was kind of a failure for me because the inner experience always drew me, and that inner experience, or I was being led by spirit, and so started here with this, and then I go spin forward. I started this channel, and I kind of wanted to do tarot, but I didn't know tarot. I didn't know tarot at all, and because, you know, there's that little prohibition that was in the back of your voice, and it's still in my head now about the prohibition against divination. But then I look at biblically, and I'm thinking, oh shit, crap, you know that you have the sages, you have the magi, the magicians, and then you have the prophets. And did the prophets in the Old Testament, did they use tools for their divination? And they probably did. And then you look at the gifts of the Spirit, and one of the gifts of the Spirit is like the discerning spirits, and maybe using tools is a way to discern between spirits, and to discern, no, I'm not famous, or So I started this channel in September 2022 on September 9th, and the 9 p.m. So it's 999. So I made sure when I came up with the name, I started it so that with the whole first thing was like 999. I did that, and then we go into 2023. We go into 2023, and I got COVID on my birthday. My mom's birthday is right around the same time, and she got the COVID too. And so she was in the hospital with COVID. And I called my aunt, and my aunt, she's my father's mother. My father's sister, sorry. My father's sister. And we were talking, and my father's sister, my aunt, told me that her grandmother read tarot. But it was more like she would read tarot at parties, and why the boys were wasted. And this is my Swedish roots, and my great grandmother was born in 1890, and immigrated to the United States, like in the teens, in the 19 teens, and so my great grandmother read tarot, but it was more like a party trick or entertainment at the party, while the boys were out drunk in the front yard or the backyard doing what the boys were doing. The women had gathered around the kitchen table, and their mother would come out with her deck of tarot cards, probably a 1909 deck, and she would read them their fortunes, and they probably would have a laugh and a good old time, and that's how it was, sort of like a party thing. And so that gave me permission. That gave me permission. So my great grandmother gave me permission to delve into tarot. And so then I got my first deck. This was my first deck. And I didn't use it too much because of the smell, and it still has a bit of a smell. And that smell gives me migraines, or it gives me headaches. And then I got my second deck, which is this one, Weissbell deck. And this one is really neat. In a certain light, this gold, the gold in here turns red. Usually it's like in sunlight. It's not in, yeah, deck sniffers. Yeah, so the card, it gets a red tint like fire, and I really like that. I don't really use this one enough. And then my next two decks I got at the same time were these ones, the Light Seers and the Radiant. I don't use this one very often because it always gives me bad news, and I don't particularly like bad news, and so I tend to not read from this deck. But I like this one a lot, the bright colors. And so that's kind of that. So that was April. In April of this year, I'll be coming up on 2 years. So to answer your question, Ange, on why I don't read too much on this channel, it's because of a lack of confidence. And the only person I read for is my sister, and my sister and my aunt are in full support of my tarot practice. Now, my mom is she's looks at it as kind of like witchy stuff. She's not against it, but she doesn't really understand it. And so, and then on my mom's side, my roots go back to the Mayflower, Pilgrims, and so in that sense, 1621. So that's when my first entry into the continental United Americas happened, was in 1621. So I do have that Salem witch trial stuff. I have all of that stuff, all of that in my background. and and so you have all these voices in there. So when Mom Twisted Twisted Sushi asked the question about the body and what secrets do the body hold. Well, I think there are all these voices that exist within us, and there's the voices that we bring from our souls, or when we incarnate into these bodies, and then there are the voices that exist within our genes. And so I think those are two different things. And so those stories, the genetic memories, and I do think we do have genetic memories, and they exist within us. Maybe they're not anything that we can put into words or anything, but they do exist. And so what is it like this? Like this is the avatar that we come into, and the avatar, but maybe it's more than that. I don't know. I don't know. So that's the whole thing of those genetic memories. And so I don't really see the tarot as I see the tarot as a tool, and as a tool to use, just like a shovel. We're using that to shovel into our psychic. Now, I do have problems in my own self in trying to think about reading for the future and things like that, because I don't necessarily believe that the future is completely written. But I know that other people who don't believe in free will would say that the future was completely written. I just think it's kind of it's I don't know. I maybe it's that Christian voice that's going on in my head all the time, and so I don't. Maybe I'm rationalizing by. You know what I did, Ange, is I took one of my old channels and I renamed it. I pulled out all the videos and everything, and last night I did a sample live stream on it on my laptop. It only has like a few, so I'm gonna see if I can do uh, public readings, but I'm not gonna release the name of that channel yet. So I'm gonna just practice doing readings and so forth. But I wouldn't mind doing some readings on Zoom. I do have a Zoom account that I pay for, and that would be like practice to practice with people. So yeah, but I'm just kind of putting that out there. I probably will start with some of my Oracle decks. I don't know. I don't know exactly when I'm starting. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change the channel name on this channel, and then I need to hit it with a lot of live streams because I'm gonna become unsearchable for a time, and so I'm gonna need to do a lot more live streams on this channel after making that channel name. But January is a good time because it's like a really low time for viewership. As like I feel like right now it's like I'm in the doldrums here. Nobody seems to be. Now I'm sounding like a whiner here. Nobody wants to look at my channel, but you guys are all here, which I really love that. Yeah. Yeah, grandmothers are the inspiration, and what was else? I have a list of all the questions I have on these, and so there was the question about do I take inspiration from nature? And the question is yes. But a lot of that happened since 2020. But of course, in 2020, I was way more agnostic because when I worked at the casino, but it was actually more, it came after my dad's death, that religion became less important, and it's kind of in that place still. even though my mother's church, the church that I grew up in, the Lutheran church, meets on Zoom, and Mom has some chronic health issues, which makes it difficult for her to get places early in the morning. And 10:30 in the morning is really early for her. It's early for me too, but it's really early for her. And so we've been saved by having Zoom church. And then, so it's like I can roll out of bed at 10 o'clock in the morning and turn the Zoom church on. And Mom can't quite figure out how to do tablets and how to do those things and getting, because that whole technology thing is a huge mystery to her. Or even when she tried using a cell phone, when it went away from buttons and went to touch screens, it was like a total mystery to her, which made it very, very difficult for her to use technology. And so if I wasn't present, Mom would be completely disconnected from her church community. And so, do I take any inspiration from nature? So when the pandemic happened and I lost my job as a server, and at that time I wasn't working at the casino. I had left the casino and I went to work for a restaurant for the first time in 2019, and it was like April 2019. And I think it was a big mistake, yes, and a big mistake, and it wasn't a mistake. But I had a lot of anyways. That restaurant didn't ask me back. They didn't ask me back. It wasn't because of self. I think it was about a lack of multitasking skills, but not a lack of customer service skills, because I have always been, as a customer service worker, I was in a tip earner. I was always a high earner. For some reason or another, people like me or something. I don't know. So if I were to have looked at what the casino said, my skills were as a server versus what my pocketbook said, there was a disconnect there. So, like, there was your tip rate, and then what the casino and the management said was that it said that I was a terrible server, that I was really, with their metrics, and that was the same with the restaurant, with the restaurant's management. My skills were terrible. I was not a good server, and mostly because I'm not a multitasker, and that's true. It's absolutely true that I do not multitask very well, and but I can do this task now, and then I can switch gears and I can do this task over here. I can switch gears and I can do this task over here, and that's how I multitask. I multitask that way. And but so I would look at how many $100 tips did I get. I got at that in that time that I was in that restaurant, I got more $100 tips than more seasoned workers do. Now, granted, it was a pub, and pub food is pretty expensive, so maybe that was like a 50% tip. But $100 tip is $100 tip, and I got. But at the casino, it was different, because at casinos, people hand out money like it's water, and so so like this time of year, I don't know if it's the same. I don't know if it's the same right now, because after the pandemic, everything changed in the service industry, and so I haven't worked in that industry for a while. But so all my experience comes from 2019 to 2016 as a tip worker, and I liked being a tip worker because I felt like if I just worked a little bit harder, I can make more money, and so I kind of felt like there was a time that I was thinking about doing commission sales, because I figured that the same principle would hold, that if you just kind of work a little bit harder, then you can make more money. And that's my dad talking. My dad was And my sister is like a really top-notch salesperson, or she was before she got the MS. And her daughters are top-notch salespeople too. It's like one of her daughters has half the United States as a sales area, and she makes like 150,000 a year. I mean, I know that it's not everything is about money, but I do know that when you make those commissions and you do that, it does mean something about your sales skills and in those skills, and so that's that. But I was getting back to nature, and so when I lost the job when they shut the state down, and I went home, and I was just in the quiet, and because I live in a rural area. I live in the coastal mountains of Oregon, and I'm not, so it's like just over the pass, and I'm at the coast. And so if I wanted to go to the beach, and I don't go to the beach as often as I want to, and I would love to live on the beach itself, either Newport or Seaside. Those are the two places that are like my dream places. If I could win the lottery, like a big lottery, and I could afford one of those houses down there, I would go either to Newport or to Seaside. And I mostly Seaside because that's where my grandmother lived. You lived in Florence, and Newport is nice. I like Newport because the weather is nicer more often at Newport than it is at Seaside, but I like Seaside better. And mainly because of the family. I still got family that live up in that area. They're cousins, a lot of cousins that I haven't met before, and my Swedish family from Sweden, they settled kind of in Portland. Most all of my dad's family lives in Portland. I have family that lives in Salem, and but that's as close as I'm going to say, anyways. And anyways, so I spent time watching animals, and watching the dog, and watching the wild turkeys, and watching the squirrels, and just watching these animals, and I gained a lot of. For one thing, I thought, there's a massive intelligence that exists in nature, and there's this intelligence that just goes on, and we just don't even think about it. It's out there in the world. It's out there, and most of the time in our lives we don't even consider the fact that there's this intelligence that exists all around us. And so I started to thinking it that way, and that's where I started to gain my voice back and started to think in terms of my spirituality again. Was just from nature, the wilderness. I can't think. You see that in the Bible and in the New Testament, and Jesus always walking in the hills and so forth. And in those walks in nature, that's where we can connect to our soul. And so, did that answer your question, Twisted Sushi, about nature, being inspired by nature? And I know I tend to ramble a little bit. And you asked that question like multiple times in different ways. And so, do I think the natural world plays a role in shaping and forming our spiritual nature? Yes, it does. And it does because you have to pay attention. And it's kind of like this found poetry. Found poetry is found when you are open for a story. And when if you're not open for a story, you can read, you can't find nothing. You can't find anything. And so you have to be open for a story. And, I like watching my little dog, and and you know, like she puts the window down in the car. She doesn't know she's doing it, but it happens. It hasn't happened yet when we've been driving down the road, but she'll in this car in this car that we have, and she puts her little paws up there, and it touches the window button, and then the window goes down, and then I think it's like a huge mystery why the window goes down, because usually it's like she's in the back seat, my mom rides in the shotgun, and then the dog gets up there and just kind of stares at me, and I kind of feel like the dog is staring at me, and it's just like, Billy, Billy, window, window. And so I put the window down. And, you know, you're going down around a curve, and you're just going around like this, and then and it's like, Billy, window, 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 Billy, Billy, window. And so you got to go put the window down, and then hopefully, you know, you're not going to go off the road or anything like that. And but so the little dog telling me put the window down, and then Mama is says, because she's 85, and she says, I'm cold, Billy, put the window up. And I said, but Pee Wee wants the window down. And I said, well, then turn the heat up. Well, no, it's too hot in here. And so so it's this constant battle. So the little dog telling me to put the window up and the window down, and so forth. And there was what now? There was a question that came, and did I answer your question, Ange, about what led me to tarot? Did I answer that? Yeah. Well, yeah. Pee Wee wins. Yeah. And then I'm saying, Mama says, put the window up. I said, well, I'm gonna pinch Pee Wee's nose. Her nose is sticking through the window. But anyways, now this is a question here: is how did I get into painting? And now, my journey with art begins really. It begins really early in my age, but it starts through, and I posted a picture of myself when I was like what, 12 years old, I think. Maybe it was 11, maybe I was 13 or 12 or 13, but it kind of begins like, it begins earlier. It does begin earlier when I'm younger, but it kind of begins, I kind of mark that genesis about when I'm like 12 or 13 years of age, and it was before high school, and I went to 3 OMSI science camps, and these were all um, and OMSI is the Oregon Museum of Science, based out of Portland, and they had science camps all over, you know, in the state during the summer months. And so I went. The first one I went to was it was like in Warrenton area. It was in Seaside, and that was, I think, between 5th and 6th grade years. I think that's when it was. Yeah, I think that's right. Between five and 6th grade, 5 and 6, and that was all about. So you move from Canada to Azores when you're 13. You know, Fatima, I have one of my mom's youngest sister married an immigrant from the Azore Islands, and so one of my uncles, and I'm not going to mention his name because he doesn't like to have an online presence, and so he's very private that way. His folks and 3 of his brothers moved to they went from the Azores to Boston, or probably New York, Boston to San Jose area. But that's another story. And so I have and anyways, where was I? I was talking about, God, I just completely forgot. What was I talking about? I'm gonna be I'm almost 60 years old. I'm almost 60. See, my hair is I'm lost a lot of hair here. Most of it's gone. The color, gray. It's gray. I don't like that. Oh, so when did I start painting? So when I was like I went to these camps, and the second one of those camps was the next following year, which was the astronomy camp. And I went to that one 2 years in a row. Then I was pretty much too old to go because I was entering. I think I was like close to entering into high school, and that was like too old. And I don't think between eighth grade. But anyway, the third, and so this, so um, I went to this astronomy camp, and yeah, well, people in my, I have tight skin, and it's these Arctic eyes. My eyes are deep inset because a lot of my dominant genes were people who lived close to the Arctic Circle, and we were those. Anyways, I went to an astronomy camp, and I learned about wanted to do astrophotography, and then my folks got me a camera, which was a Pentax K1000. And I still have that camera, and I believe it still works, but I don't know. The mechanism, you click the mechanism, and it still works. And so if you could get film, you could still work it. And if you replace the light meter camera, the light meter battery in it, then I think the camera would still work. And so I didn't have one of those. Never was able to get one of those telescopes where it had a clock on it where it could track through the stars. My dad, that wouldn't conceive of that kind of an expense, and that would be like $1,000 expense in, 1980 or something like that. With a clock drive, yeah. But so anyway, I had a camera, and then next year I went and I strapped that camera on the back of a telescope because they had all those those telescopes, and so, but it was with that camera, and then you go out and you take pictures and so forth, and you didn't know what you're doing. It really didn't know what I was doing until I met one of my friends who's I met in college, which I call a childhood friend, because that was still part of my childhood and growing up. Not until about that time, but I also did music, and like I said, I started writing poetry in 1987, but I really hit it hard after I graduated from college, after the summer of firefighting, and then the month that I spent in Israel. But after the summer of firefighting, I started, the poetry just came out of me, and it just flooded out of me, and I really haven't really stopped. But, I kind of have a little bit, and but that's really, it just came out. It was just, I don't know, it was just amazing how it came out of me. And so in high school, I took art, and this is something I made in high school, art, my little clay sculpture, and I did the drawing and stuff like that. I think they did some painting. I don't really remember, but I failed at drawing, and I still don't like drawing. So I had it in my mind that you couldn't paint, but I always wanted to paint, you see. I had it in my mind that you couldn't paint until you knew how to draw first. But so about 2015, 2016, I was working on I had an idea for another found poetry manuscript, and I was working on that manuscript, and I really wanted to call it Metal, because I'm a metalhead. I like metal, and I was like thinking, all right, what I was going to do was take try to find out of these books, and I would take the pages, and I would paint out all the words that I wasn't used in metallic paint, and I would use listen to metal, my favorite metal bands. It would be like Wolves in the Throne Room or Year of No Light, and some of these heavy black metal bands, and to see if how that atmospheric music would how that would form the story that I might possibly come from that might come from the words on the page. Then I would mark those words out, and then I would paint the whole thing metallic paint. Well, I started that project. I actually never finished that. I never finished that at all. And then it morphed into um, painting stuff like this. Like a year later. So that was like 2015, 2016. This is 2017. I was working as a bar back when I did this and learning bartending. And so I got my first bartending job when I was 50 years old. Can you imagine learning how to be a server when you're 50 years old? Yeah. So I learned how to be a server pretty much when I was in my late 40s, and I was 50 years old when I had got my first bartending job. And I worked it for 2 years, and I pretty much quit but it was a hard the casino was an extremely hard job to quit. It was the hardest job I'd had in my life, working at the casino, but I didn't burn the bridges. So if I wanted to go back, I could go back. Because I quit there twice. The place was extremely hard to work at, and for a lot of factors, and then the migraines I had were just magnified when I went there, and it was the stress of the job, and I had a hard time telling people, no, you're too drunk, you can't have any more booze, and so my timidness pretty much cost me my job. My unwillingness to confront somebody to tell them, sorry, sir, you're too drunk, you can't have any more booze. So instead, I served them another drink, and that is how I pretty much lost my job. But I didn't. I quit before I got fired, and there's no guarantee that they would have fired me, because the other people told me, they said, Bill, you should have stuck it out, and because you were really good at it as far as like the customer service and everything else. And then they had just moved me to day shift. If I had stuck it out, but then I had made a mistake with the money, and that's the casino was willing to forgive a little bit on violation of alcohol policy, but they weren't forgiving with money violations. And so what happened there was like the worst night in my working career. And there was a little tiny bar. It was a one-person bar, but for someone had the bright idea to schedule 2 people in that bar. And so they scheduled me with somebody who didn't like me. And that person was like and of course that person ended up getting fired because he was stealing from the casino. Stealing by it took him, I don't know exactly how he did it, but he made special pricing, and it seemed completely legit with the books. And I think I knew how he did it, because you had these on the POS, you had like some upgrades. And so like if you take something and you want to turn it into a margarita, you buy a shot of more expensive a non-well drink, and then you hit that margarita upgrade. So he might have hit a couple different upgrades together and create his own special pricing, and it just completely minus the booze out, and he was able to and but for a bartender, he was like the best that I'd ever seen in my life, and I think he was the best that the casino had ever hired, because he was a Las Vegas bartender, and he could juggle the bottles, and even though the casino had a policy against juggling the bottles, but they let him juggle the bottles. And so on any given night on the weekend, he made $1,000 a night in tips. He made $1,000 a night, and he was one of those type of people who could mesmerize. And so I think that a lot of people think that he was hypnotizing people and mesmerizing them, and so that they would give him money. And so so he was like this made a massive amount of money, and he was also like a masterful multitasker, and so where they wouldn't put me on the swing shift because I couldn't handle it, which was true. It absolutely was true, because I realized when I was looking at retrospect that I do have some autistic tendencies, and what was happening is I was in that environment, which was a lot of, and my vision would tunnel down like this. And so a lot of times when I made those alcohol violations, it was because it was tunneling down like this, and I couldn't see. I literally just couldn't see outside of that little circle. And so I was doing these tasks right in front of me, and I was doing bang bang, and I was trying to do it. And so you would have a line of like a fight night. So that night I was working with this guy in this little tiny bar, and there was not enough room for two people there, but there was two of us there, and the guy didn't want to work with me, and it was a fight night. So they were showing on the big TVs all over the casino. They were showing a fight. I think it was a boxing match, and so it was so it was a boxing match, and I had a line, in front of that bar. There was a continual line of like 500 people, and they were just coming through and passing through. And so in that time, and so this guy standing, it was my turn on the cash register, and I think he was making drinks, and then we switched back and forth. And I was on that cash register, and he was standing back behind me, and I could feel his energy, just that hostility drilling into me. And somebody hands me $100 bill, and I put it in the spot where the 20s go, and then the very next transaction I handed it back out as change. And that, I had this massive cash shortage on my record, and that was a huge violation. And if I had even was off a dime, I would have lost my job. And so I knew that because of they had no forgiveness when it came to money shortages. I think it was a $50 bill, so it was like I was almost $100 off on my till. And so that transaction and one more of those things would have cost me my job. And so that's why I left the casino. And even though it was like even though it gave me migraines, I would have stuck that stuff out. But there was great benefits, and it was like, probably in the state of Oregon, there isn't a organization that gives better benefits than that damn casino does, except maybe the state jobs, or if you work at the fire department or something like that. Anyways, hello Evie, welcome. So that is, I don't know why I told that story. but that's kind of but that was kind of the precursor to, you know, I was doing that job, that high level job that was really, really, really hard. And yeah, so that job was really, really hard. And doing that job, I lost my writer's voice. I lost the ability to write, but I was painting. And I could still do that, and I was painting. And let me see if there's, in this box here, what else there is. It's just a bunch of painted objects. It's a painted object here. These are actually house paints. Excuse me. So how does my mic sound? This is a different mic I'm using. And I bought, and I haven't really used this mic before, and it is a powered mic, but it's being powered by the battery in my phone, so I can't use it too much. Water, you're right. I'll have some more caffeine. For those who are out there who love the taste of booze but can't drink, what's really, really good is mixing apple cider with carbonated water, and it kind of, you can kind of trick your, and if you add some apple cider vinegar to it, you can trick yourself into thinking that you're either drinking a hard cider or you're drinking a sweeter IPA type beer. And if you dry it out a lot more with more carbonated water, you can think that you're drinking an IPA. But anyway, this here is a painted object from my early, probably that whole 20, I don't know when I did it, but it was probably around the same time. I've done a lot of these painted objects. And these are losing lottery tickets right here. I like to gamble. I think I've mentioned that before, but I haven't done it in a long time. Here's another one with hands, a painted object. And I've been meaning to go do a long play video about how to paint on these objects, because it took me a long time to figure out how to do it. And so I want to do that, but here is a painted object. I like this because it's like we have like the eye of God looking, staring into the world. Yeah. And then the hand of God reaching up from the ground, because you got the above and below kinds of thing. This is, I think, is a pretty cool object, painted object. I have a few more. This is another one from that time period. And so don't ask me what this stuff is. But I feel it's like it's stuff from spirit world manifesting in our world. So painted objects. And anyways, so that is that. Let me see if there was another question. So Dreamaden, do you have a question that you would like to ask me that I can try to answer before veering off into some other story? So the natural world secrets the body, mirroring the soul. Yeah, we got that. The divine in the world. Yeah. I was like thinking something, and maybe it's just me rationalizing my rationalizations, but this was kind of like my own question. Oh yeah. So maybe a question might ask, somebody might ask, no, maybe you guys not, but other people would ask, because when it comes down to that tarot experience, because that's sort of a, when you come out of that Christian background, it's a really a touchy, it's a touchy thing. And so for those who, of my good Christian friends, I tend to not tell them about it. And so one of the reasons I don't go on Facebook very much anymore is because I have so many of those Christian friends. How was Christmas? Well, Christmas, I just stayed home. We were supposed to go over to my sister's place, but mom's health, mom's chronic issues came into play, and she didn't quite feel up to it. And then, like 2 days before Christmas or so, one of the headlights in the car burned out, and with one headlight, and during that rainstorm we had, I didn't feel competent to drive home at night when I couldn't see. And the car, because like when I go in the manual to go look, well, how do I change the headlight out? It says, don't attempt to change the headlight out at home. Go to an expert and have them do it. And I'm thinking, oh, great. Well, okay, I'm sure that I can do it, but I wasn't able to do it before on Christmas Eve, Christmas whatever. And so I didn't feel competent driving at dark with that one headlight. And as I explained, was it last night about my father dying in a car accident, and then last um, July, August, two of my cousins got ran over by a car. We're father and son, and so it's like then my cousin and he was like 40 something years old, and his wife died in a car accident just a couple of years before that. So he left like 3 kids, and for my this was my mom's first cousin, my mother's first cousin, and his son died at the same time. They got run over by a car. They lived out in an unincorporated part of like Sandy, Oregon, out there, unincorporated. So it was like a densely populated rural area, and it'd be like where I live, but like 10 times the population, but still, it's still considered rural. I think where they would have like 3 acre plots. So your neighborhood would, maybe would be 1, 2, 3 acres. You bought a plot out in that area, but so that's pretty dense populated for rural. Like I'm on a 3.5. I'm on a 3.5 acre plot, but it could have been higher. And there are, I think one of the, and I think there's one of the people that live up in this neighborhood that has 100 acres, and then there's a family here that has 10,000 acres. So if you're looking at that, and then there are other people, and so we're a little bit further spread apart. But in that area was rural, yes, but not. It was still just like it was anyway. Nevertheless, and so there's a windy road down in there. They live somewhere close to Dodge Park, and so had gone to a party at Dodge Park, and they were walking home, and then some. So it was on a narrow road, and the cars come in. One car coming in, it had its brights on, and then this older guy, like almost 80 years old, driving, and he got blinded and he ran over my cousins, and so there's this history of automobiles and my driving anxiety. So I didn't feel competent. I didn't feel comfortable driving at night during a rainstorm when I couldn't see. And so I didn't go to to my sisters like I usually do. So I threw it together a turkey, cooked a turkey, and had a very simple, yeah, yeah, yeah. I love to drive, but I just don't like to drive when there's anyone on the road. And I usually love my favorite form of entertainment, other than playing slot machines that I don't play anymore except on my tablet, is driving on those back roads. And in this area I've driven on almost every single one of them, and so forth. And anyways, that is all. I think all I have for today. I hope that I hope this was a good. Oh, I was like think that I wanted to say what was one other thing. It was how is it that I can do as a semi-practicing Christian? How is it that I juggle the tarot with that? And a lot of that comes is that my basic beliefs is that what exists in this realm here doesn't really exist beyond this realm. So all of our religions and all of that stuff, when these exist, they exist only here, and it doesn't exist elsewhere. So if there was like a civilization of a different people on Mars, that they would have a total different mythology. They would have total different mythologies and spiritual beliefs and everything. Maybe there would be a common core, a thread that was the same, and I think there is a common core thread that is the same where we are, but in someplace else it's going to be completely different. And so how much does that stuff really matter? And so my basic beliefs is that maybe it just doesn't matter. You know? Maybe the little details of your faith path really just don't matter that much. And maybe what matters is how you behave and how you act. And that's kind of what actually the New Testament scriptures talk about too. How do you the instructions of how are you, how are you saved? And is it through what little details that you believe? Do these little details, how much do these little details matter? Maybe they don't matter at all. Maybe it's just how you behave and how you treat other people. Jarek Bondark, welcome. Greetings from Poland. And so, yeah. So yeah, I just think that it's the finger that points to the moon, and we get hung up on the finger. So your religious path is the finger, but the religious path is to so the religious path is to point the way. And so we are, as people, we're getting hung up on the damn finger. And so that finger is Christianity, or it's Buddhism, or it's Islam, or it's paganism, or it's atheism. I think that finger is all, and that's where I would differ, because I think that atheism is a path, is a spiritual path too. It's atheism, or it's this, or it's deism, or like as many of the founding fathers were, they were deists. They didn't really like, they they were Christian in name only. For the most part, they were agnostics. But it was the finger, and we're concentrated on the finger, but we really need to look. Welcome, Joseph. So if you look at like A.E. Waite, he was a Christian, he was a Catholic, and he thought himself as a Christian, and he thought himself as a in terms of football. You mean like soccer football, or American football, or you thinking? I think of like foosball. Anyways, I'm not much of a sports person, but the thing. So we got all these fingers on this planet that we are thinking that these fingers are all that it is, but that's not it. Like Joseph Campbell in the excuse me. This is just really good tea. Joseph Campbell in The Power of Myth, and Joseph Campbell told a story, and this was a Hindu story, and there was about the trickster. And the trickster is walking down this path. And so you're looking at this as a two-dimensional world like this. It's like, so he's walking down the path. And there's people on this side and people on that side, and this side of the road and that side of the road. And so the trickster's walking down the path, and he puts on a hat. And on the hat, one side of the hat is red, and the other side of the hat is blue. So he walks on down the path, and so the people on the right side see a red hat, and the people on the left side see a blue hat. He's walking down the path. And then people on the right, did I say whatever? Okay. Red, blue. Okay, so the people on the right side come up and say, "Oh yeah, we saw the trickster. We saw the God walk by. God walked by. He was wearing a red hat." And then the people on the other side says, "No, God was wearing a blue hat." And then they war together, and says, "No." And then, "Oh, look, he's coming back. Well, then the God takes his hat and he turns it the other way around. So then he's walking down the path, and then so the people on this side see a red hat, and the people on this side see a blue hat. But the thing is, the guy's got a red and blue hat. And that's what our religion is like. That's what the religion in this world is like. So you have Catholic, you have Protestant, you have Orthodox, and these are all just different colored hats. And we get hung up on that goddamn hat. And that's the way it is. And so if you are a mystic or you read the mystics, you see that they have a different experience. They have a different outlook. And they're trying to look beyond that hat. And if you are a practitioner of a particular faith path, you're in that hat. And it's hard to see beyond that hat. And so A.E. Waite he defined himself as a Christian. He was a Catholic, a Christian mystic, yes. And he brought us the tarot. And so A.E. Waite brought us. And so the tarot came from a Christian mystic. But there's no Christian who is stuck in that hat who would recognize his Christianity. So A.E. Waite's Christianity is not recognized at all as being Christian, and so he's being judged as not as being non-Christian. But what about him? He thinks he's Christian. Now have have called, in times past, have called myself Christian, and I've had people tell me I'm not a Christian because your voting record precludes you from being a Christian. You cannot be a liberally minded individual and be a Christian. And so and so it's like everything about me says that I hate God, and I've had people tell me that, and everything about you tells me you hate God, and I don't understand, why do you hate God, Bill? Why do you hate God? And I said, I don't hate God, And he says, yes, you do. And I said, and because you hate God because of your art. Your art tells me, when I look at your art, it tells me you hate God. When I look at your beliefs and the things that you talk about, it tells me you hate God. Well, I hate God is because I am not a part of the GOP. That's the reason I hate God. But anyways, that's another story. I wasn't going to go into politics at all on my channel, and so but that's just that. And so I tend to not go on Facebook and advertise that I do this channel or anything like that because of all those people that I know who would be feel offended by the tarot. So I don't bother telling them about the tarot in my life. And so that's what I got. So my journey, starting with the tarot, began with this book by H.P. Blavatsky, and that individual was a member of the Golden Dawn. Now, A.E. Waite didn't quite like H.P. Blavatsky because H.P. Blavatsky was pretty negative towards Christianity, and A.E. Waite was not. And then I will end this with a poem from this little book that I got from my grandmother. And so that was the daughter of my great grandmother, who was a party tarot reader. And I will read, and this is The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And I will read this. Okay. Then an old man, a keeper of an inn, said, "Speak to us of eating and drinking." And he said, "Would that you could live on the fragrance of the earth, like an air plant, be sustained by light. But since you must kill to eat and rob the newly born of its mother's milk to quench your thirst, let it then be an act of worship. And let your board stand an altar on which the pure and the innocent of the forest and plain are sacrificed for that which is pure and still more innocent in man. When you kill a beast, say to him in your heart, by the same power that slays you, I too am slain. I too shall be consumed. For the law that delivered you into my hand shall deliver me into a mightier hand. Your blood and my blood is naught but the sap that feeds the tree of heaven. And when you crush an apple with your teeth, say to it in your heart, your seed shall live in my body, and the buds of your tomorrow shall blossom in my heart, and your fragrance shall be my breath, and together we shall rejoice through all the seasons. And in the autumn, when you gather the grapes of your vineyard for the winepress, say in your heart, I too am the vineyard, and my fruit shall be gathered for the winepresses. And like new wine, I shall be kept in eternal vessels. And in winter, when you draw the wine, let there be in your heart a song for each cup, and let there be in song a remembrance for the autumn days, and for the vineyard and the winepress. Know that I too am the vineyard. I too am the wine. I too am the grape. I too am the tree, the birds in the field, the little doggies, the stars in the sky, and the earth beneath the feet, my feet. I too am all those things. And the source that brought it all into existence, I too came from there. And that's all I got for you today. Thank you for watching. For those who watched, there are these buttons, the like button and the sub button. Are these backwards? Well, anyways, like and sub if you like my channel. I'm going to be bringing more stuff, some more art and so forth. This I did last night. And thank you, Mama Sushi, for staying all the way to the end. Thank you, Joseph Grace, for coming, saying hello. Thank you, Jack from Poland. Thank you, Dreamadin Mashups. Thank you, Fatima. Thank you, Roots and Waves. Thank you, Evie. Thank you, Rex. Thank you, Tarot Ask Backwards. And thank everybody else who didn't come and say hello, for being here today. And I didn't think I would go on for 90 minutes, but I did. And and this here, the best piece of art that I did in 2017. And so I think I didn't answer that question quite completely on when did I start painting? Well, I started painting. I thought I had to draw first, but I didn't know how to draw. And someplace in my 40s, I decided that, you know what? I'm going to start painting. I want to learn how to paint. And I'm just going to go out and do it. And because I can't draw, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to go out and do it, and I'm going to start painting. And that's what I did. I just went out there and started doing it. And I'm learning tarot because I'm just going to do it. You know, maybe the church says it's wrong or whatever. But my grandmother gave me permission to go out and do it, even though, for whatever reason, I'm going to do it. And that's why I do things. Because we're just going to go out there and do it. And just because you don't have the prerequisites doesn't mean you can't do something. And that's what the lesson today is. You can do these things that you want to do. You just have to start. And so this year I'm going to start doing public readings. Not on this channel, but I will start doing public readings. And eventually I'm going to get good at it. And I will have all those cards memorized that I don't have all memorized right now. And that's it. And that's it for today. Blessings and peace to you, and have a wonderful end of your year. And if I don't see you before and I think I'm going to do one on Tuesday night. That's New Year's Eve. No one's going to watch it, so I'm probably just going to play chess. I'm going to bring my chessboard out, and we'll play chess again That's probably what I'll do on New Year's Eve. Maybe way early in the day. Probably that. Anyways, bye-bye for now, and we'll see you the next time. Bye.